Live from Lincoln Center, another in the Emmy Award-winning series, coming to you live from Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts in New York City. Tonight, a gala concert with Luciano Pavarotti and conductor Zubin Mehta with the New York Philharmonic. Assisting them will be bass James Morris and the New York Choral Artists Men's Chorus, whose director is Joseph Flummerfeld. This extraordinary event is coming to you from the stage of Avery Fisher Hall. And now, waiting for us backstage, here is our host, Patrick Watson.
Well, that's Broadway out there, ladies and gentlemen. Lincoln Square, Broadway and 65th Street. And this is the backstage area here at Avery Fisher Hall. Across that rather unprepossessing corridor, some of the greatest musical names of our time have walked to meet that responsive and demonstrative and knowledgeable creature, the New York audience. And this is an audience tonight that knows very exactly what it came for. When the tickets for this concert went on sale, they were sold out that very day, 3 weeks ago. And over these last few days, this hall has seen a real fever of intense activity preparing to meet that audience expectation. Beginning first with separate rehearsals for the chorus and the orchestra, then the orchestra rehearsing with Luciano Pavarotti, and finally, on Saturday, the first full meeting of all the participants. And it's in that crucible of rehearsal that the metal for tonight's performance has to be tested and tempered and fined and agreed upon between soloist and conductor. The tempi, the dynamics, the phrasing, the balance of soloist against the orchestra. Happily, a conductor and a tenor who like each other and trust each other. So in the end, even if some issues have gone unresolved, as they always must, they can leave this last rehearsal, as they did a few hours ago, confident in each other's intentions. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is live television. If you're watching this at 8:02 p.m. on April the 4th, 1983, what you are seeing is happening as you watch it. And this concert is one in a long tradition involving performers who have a kind of extraordinary charisma to which their audiences respond with a passion, even an awe, that has to do with something more than music. There is an emotional investment on both sides of the house tonight that is really quite extraordinary and prodigious. An hour from now, approximately, in the intermission, I'll be talking with both Luciano Pavarotti and conductor Zubin Mehta about how they collaborate to prepare to meet such an encounter.
from Lincoln Center. This has been the overture to the opera The Sicilian Vespers by Giuseppe Verdi. The opening work on this gala concert by Zubin Mehta, the New York Philharmonic, and tenor Luciano Pavarotti, with bass James Morris. Here is Zubin Mehta returning, and at his bidding, the players of the New York Philharmonic rise. We'll have a varied program of music this evening, principally from the Italian opera repertoire, but also there will be music from other national traditions. In just a few moments, Luciano Pavarotti will make his first appearance of the evening, and to begin, he will sing two arias from Verdi's Rigoletto. The first of them, Questo Quella, which is sung very near the beginning of the opera by the Duke of Mantua, who brags in this aria about his reckless philosophy of love and his many conquests. Avery Fisher Hall in New York City's Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts is the setting for this extraordinary concert, as it has been for so many. Indeed, many in the continuing series of Live from Lincoln Center telecasts have originated in this auditorium. And now I think you can almost palpably feel the electricity which is being generated in the auditorium, the audience expectantly awaiting the appearance of tenor Luciano Pavarotti. A great favorite here in New York, as of course he is the world over. And he has appeared on several occasions previously with Zubin Mehta and the Philharmonic. Luciano Pavarotti. From Verdi's Rigoletto, he sings the aria Questo Quella.
Questo quella per me pari sono a quant'altre d'intorno mi vedo, del mio cuore l'impero non cedo, meglio ad una che ad altre beltà, la costore avvenenza e quel dono di che il fato nel fiore alla vita. Se oggi in questa mi torna gradita, forse un'altra, doman lo sarà un'altra, forse un'altra, doman lo sarà. La costanza tiranna del tore detestiamo, quel morbo crudele, sol chi vuole si servi fedele, non va amor non ho, se non ven libertà. De mariti il geloso furore, degli amanti le smanie derigo, anco d'argo di cent'occhi di sfido, se mi fugge, o ad altra beltà. Se un'altra beltà.
Questo Quella, from the first act of Verdi's Rigoletto, sung by tenor Luciano Pavarotti. Next, another aria from Rigoletto, Farmi vedere le lacrime.
C'è e brevi istanti, prima che il mio presagio interno sull'orma corsa ancora mi spingesse. Schiuso era l'uscio e la magion deserta, e dove ora sarà quell'angelo caro, colei che pria potei in questo cuore destar la fiamma di costanti affetti, colei si pura da cui modesto sguardo quasi spinto a virtù d'amor mi credo. Ella mi fu rapita e chi l'ardiva, ma ne avrò vendetta. Lo chiede il pianto, il dubbio e l'ansia e subito periglio dell'amore nostro memore, dell'amore nostro memore, il suo duoletiere chiamo. Soccorrerti, cara fanciulla amata, che vorria con l'anima farti qua giù beata, e che le sfere agli angeli, e che le sfere agli angeli pretendono il vio, e che le sfere agli angeli per te, le sfere agli angeli. Non invidio
The recitative and aria, Farmi veder le lagrime, from Verdi's Rigoletto, sung by tenor Luciano Pavarotti, with the New York Philharmonic, conducted by Zubin Mehta. This performance coming to you live from the stage at Avery Fisher Hall in New York City. Luciano Pavarotti returning. And we'll have a lot more Pavarotti before the evening is over. Next, however, we have the first appearance of the men's chorus from the New York choral artists, who will sing with Zubin Mehta and the New York Philharmonic the Soldiers' Chorus from Verdi's Il Trovatore. At the start of the chorus, the soldiers tell of their brief hours of leisure while waiting to be called into battle. And then, as the bugle sounds, they sing about their hope for victory, and they prepare to march off to war. Zubin Mehta conducting the Soldiers' Chorus from Verdi's Il Trovatore. From Verdi's Il Trovatore, the Soldiers' Chorus, sung by the male chorus of the New York choral artists with the New York Philharmonic under the direction of Zubin Mehta. Luciano Pavarotti returns in a moment, and we move to another opera by Verdi, I Lombardi. And Luciano Pavarotti sings La mia Letizia in Fondere from Verdi's I Lombardi.
mortale di me più lieto non è la terra. La mia letizia infondere vorrei nelle sue bel cuore, vorrei destare palpiti del mio beato amore. Tante armonie nell'etere, quanti dialetti e gli aire quel cielo e terra Geremi, come mortal non va, il seco al cielo e Geremi, dove mortale non va, dove mortale non va, dove mortal non va. Eleggeremi dove mortale non va. Non ne va.
La mia letizia infondere from Verdi's I Lombardi, sung by Luciano Pavarotti. Now, Maestro Pavarotti returns to Verdi's Rigoletto for La Donna Mobile.
La donna è mobile, qual piuma al vento, muta d'accento e di pensiero. Sempre un amabile, leggiadro viso, il pianto è viso e menzognero. La donna è mobile, qual piuma al vento, muta d'accento e di pensiero. E di pensiero, e di pensiero. È sempre misero chi a lei s'affida, chi le confida al cauto il cuore, pur mai non sente sì felice appieno chi su quel seno non gli va amore. La donna è mobile, qual più umanamente muta d'accento e di pensiero. E di pensiero,
La Donna Immobile from Verdi's Rigoletto. Luciano Pavarotti with Zubinmeta conducting the New York Philharmonic. Woman is Fickle is the refrain of La Donna Mobile. And there certainly is nothing fickle about the affection of the New York audience for Luciano Pavarotti. When he returns to the podium, Zubin Mehta will conduct the New York Philharmonic in the overture to yet another opera by Verdi, Louisa Miller. The libretto deals with the story of love of a highly placed young man for Louisa Miller, who is the daughter of a musician. And some music stands are being set out in front of the orchestra on stage. Later, of course, bass James Morris will join Luciano Pavarotti for the final scene of the second act of Louisa Miller. And the fact that the stand has been set out now leads me to suspect that almost instantly after the overture, we'll then have that final scene from Louisa Miller with Luciano Pavarotti and James Morris. And now the stage seems to be set, and all is ready for the return of Zubin Mehta for the overture to Louisa Miller. The opera was first performed in December of 1849 at the San Carlo Theater in Naples. And here is Zubin Mehta, the overture to Verdi's opera, Louisa Miller. solo clarinetist of the New York Philharmonic, in acknowledgement of his clarinet solo in the overture to the opera Louisa Miller by Giuseppe Verdi. Live from Lincoln Center, from the stage of Avery Fisher Hall in New York City, you are watching an historic occasion. Luciano Pavarotti with Zubin Mehta and the New York Philharmonic in a concert that was sold out the very day the tickets went on sale. Now, having heard the overture to Louisa Miller, we'll hear the final scene from the second act of the same opera with Luciano Pavarotti and bass James Morris.
Agli occhi miei se cielo e terra, se mortali ed angeli attestarmi volessero che ella non è rea, mentite, io rispondere dovrei, tutti mentite. Son cifre sue, quanta perfidia un'alma sì nera, sì mendace. Bella conobbe il padre, ma dunque il giuri, le speranze, la gioia, le lagrime, l'affanno, tutto è menzogna, tradimento, inganno. Questa mano stringermi, dalla sua mano sentia, mi tradia, mi tradia. Alla Maria in suono angelico amate sol dicea mi tradia, mi tradia, mi tradia. travia, chiedeste, appressati, leggi. Ad entrambi è questa ora di morte, scegliere tu devi, signor, arresta, meco ad un punto solo, spento cadere il suono de forza, inferno padre mio, e sorgi, odi, abbomino il mio rigor crudele, abbia virtù d'un premio, ceda alla tua fedele, porgi la va. E ascolto, tu vuoi? Giaisci. Stolto diverrò, questa mia figlio, e pago sei, pago sperai, o piangimi, tradito ma com'ei, tradito, perché, no, vendetta come, al negozio testio, di tuo disprezzo adessa, che intendi, alla prova, conduci la duchessa. Io, sì, no, maneggio, che parlo, ahimè, maneggio. Rodolfo, non pentirti, dove mi sia, non so. Arrendi a me, tradirti il padre tuo. Potrei, non ho potrei, l'inferno senza lei sarebbe il ciel per me, ma si sarebbe il ciel per me, ma si l'inferno senza di lei sarebbe il ciel per me.
the finale from Act 2 of Giuseppe Verdi's Louisa Miller. Tenor Luciano Pavarotti and bass James Morris with the New York Philharmonic, conducted by Zubin Mehta. Well, the first half of this concert has been given over entirely to extracts from 5 different operas by Verdi: Sicilian Vespers, Rigoletto, Trovatore, I Lombardi, and Louisa Miller. And once again, Luciano Pavarotti and James Morris return. A Verdi first half will be followed in the second part of this concert by music of varying composers and different musical traditions. We'll have music by Weber, Massenet, Bizet, Gounod, and Donizetti. And later on, bass James Morris will again join Luciano Pavarotti for performances here in the Live from Lincoln Center gala event with the New York Philharmonic, Zubin Mehta conducting, Luciano Pavarotti as the tenor soloist. James Morris became a sensation overnight, almost literally, in 1975, when a last-minute cancellation at the Metropolitan Opera gave him a chance at the title role in Mozart's Don Giovanni. And this triumphant success catapulted him to fame. He is one of the most celebrated and respected artists on the roster of the Metropolitan Opera here in New York. Well, as you can see, the capacity audience here at Avery Fisher Hall in New York City is taking a breather from the remarkable music making which we're all experiencing here this evening. And in just a few moments, we'll go to the intermission portion of our telecast this evening. And right now, let's go backstage to our host, Patrick Watson.
Well, it's a springtime audience here in Avery Fisher Hall in New York tonight, and I don't just speak of the colorful quality of the clothes that some of the people are wearing, but the kind of vernal eagerness with which they've come into the hall tonight. I even had the feeling that to some extent they were congratulating themselves on the splendid form they found their returning favorite in. Anyway, it really is a classical spring evening here in New York City. A little too blustery to be called balmy, perhaps, but they had some of the chairs out on the outdoor cafe terraces on Broadway this afternoon. And although this is going to be controversial with the ornithologists, I'm about ready to swear that at 2 o'clock this morning, through my hotel window, I heard a mockingbird singing across in Central Park, just the other side of the street. Anyway, the daffodils are in blossom there, and the trees are coming into leaf, so that springtime energy is very much in the city. It wasn't exactly like that as recently as 4 or 5 days ago, when I went for a walk over in the park with conductor Zubin Mehta. The park, by the way, is just, a long city block from where I'm standing here, to talk about some of the questions of risk that face a conductor and a soloist in a concert like this. The having to hold one performer, having to hold up the whole evening effectively, and the questions of who is really in charge. When you've got an artist, a star of the prodigious international quality of Luciano Pavarotti, and a conductor who is nominally supposed to be running things, how do they work that out? Especially in front of an audience that is in a mood to expect an almost impossible level of perfection. Zubin Mehta began the conversation by telling me a story from the Italian city of Parma, where audiences apparently don't only expect perfection, but they're very unforgiving if they don't get it.
Yeah. You know the story of a certain very famous tenor whose name I won't mention, who's of course not singing with us.
Singing with us.
No, it's not him. It's somebody else. And he sang La Bohème in Parma.
Is this true, by the way?
Yeah, this is a true story. He sang in Parma and had a little crack on a high B natural or something. And they booed him, of course, and he was booed away at the end of the performance. The next day he's leaving the hotel, and the porter is carrying his bags and looks at him and says, "Aren't you the tenor who sang La Boheme last night?" He says, "Yes." He says, "Then you carry your bags yourself." Now, they take it very seriously.
You know, you're almost in the role of an accompanist when you're working with one of these guys. Huh? And I'm
Yeah, but I'll never admit to that, because it's not really accompanying. Opera is not accompaniment. I'll tell you, you know, even the simplest pam-pa is not an accompaniment in that sense. It's breathing together with your soloist. It's giving him every possible flexibility and yet maintaining a discipline. And the combination of this makes the partnership between conductor and soloist feasible.
Is there an issue for you when you're working with an artist like Pavarotti or a great pianist like Horowitz of subordinating your ego to the performers or your musical will to the performers?
No, there's no subordination. It's a partnership. And the conductor has to remember that the soloist, be it a singer or a pianist, if he is convinced that that person is really thought through his music, which in some cases is much more in depth than the conductor has because it's only an accompaniment, etc., then it's not a question of subordination, but it is a question of professional acquiescence to the partner. So you've practiced it this way, why should I at the last moment make you change things? In other words, Luciano's used to, for instance, breathing in a certain way, certain phrase. I can't tell him the morning of the performance, look, breathe in another place or sing 2 phrases in one breath.
Yeah,
that wouldn't be fair.
But suppose your musical judgment is really violated by something that he wants very strongly to do. How do you resolve that?
It just depends on how much. Because there's a great deal of give and take, if not compromise, in these things. That's why it's wonderful to make music, whether it's a singer or a pianist, with people that you like. You know, it comes a point in your life that other people or other circumstances is just not worth it.
Is it possible to make good music with people you don't like? Can you get something out of an aggressive or a hostile tension?
I treat these things very personally, so I find it difficult if I do not get along spiritually with a human being to make music with him or her.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious about the issue of fear for a performer, and Luciano Pavarotti has been quite eloquent writing and talking about how terrified he is just before a performance. And I'm wondering whether Is that good?
Oh, yes, that's
the
good.
adrenaline up?
That's good. That's good.
But I'm wondering whether part of your role...
It's terrible to go on stage completely relaxed, sort of blasé.
The risk is tremendous.
Yes. No, well, not for him.
No?
No, he just does it in his stride. I don't want to think there's a risk.
No, but it's still...
I'd like to go on stage thinking that this is just straight music making. But you know, one thing that has never happened to me is that a soloist suddenly stops and says, well, I can't continue.
Do you always fear this possibility?
Yes, and it has never happened. You know.
And what do you do?
I don't know what I would do.
Improvise.
I mean, once it happened with Rubinstein, and why should I tell you a derogatory story about my most favorite human being as an artist?
No, but it's a human story.
He was doing the Franck Variations in Israel. And there's a huge sort of a piano cadenza, and he just got lost. Now, he's such a terrific musician that he can't get lost and stop playing, because he improvises them. Now, many people can't today. In today's way, people are trained. They can't really sit and... But he improvised, but he got out of the tonality. And the way the orchestra comes in at the end of the cadenza is...
You mean you were playing C-sharp major?
No, we weren't playing at all.
He was
We were not playing.
Just pure
cadenza. He was playing alone. But he was improvising in such a strange tonality. I said, now how am I going to come in with this one flute that goes pa-pa-pum-pum-pum? And he looks at me unruffled, keeps on smiling. He says, don't worry, I'll bring you in. And at one point, he gave me a split second, the right tonality, and I brought the flute in. But you know, the orchestra probably had about 6 gray hairs, because they didn't know, because they're supposed to count bars then too. They stopped counting, and he was improvising. And that happens occasionally.
Anything like that ever happened to the singer?
Well, with a singer, every single time you go into the pit, something happens on stage, there's no doubt.
Example?
You know, I've had Lohengrins coming in 2 or 3 measures before they were supposed to sing. Now this is real trouble. Because if they come late, or if they don't enter, at least you can blame yourself that you didn't give them a cue or something like that. But if they come in 2 bars early when you're not even paying attention to him, you're really in trouble because he's way ahead, and then you have to play that much faster to make up the music that you come to the same place.
Is there a difference in the risk level that you're aware of when you walk onto the stage between a soloist's concert and doing a symphony? Which has the greater level of risk for you?
You know, I don't think like that. I'm a positive thinker.
You don't go out saying, my God, I hope I'm going to be able to pull this off.
No. I hope I know my score, and I'm convinced enough about the music that not to. I don't go out with that premonition.
Never.
Last month, let's say, I was slightly nervous.
Do you mean when
why
we did
I
the
was
Beethoven?
doing? No, Beethoven with this orchestra and with the soloists we had.
That's being
we
home.
had one of the great choruses. It was just going out and making music. But we did, after the Beethoven, we did a sort of a monodrama by Schoenberg called Erwartung. He's one of the great singers of the world, Hildegard Behrens. And I was doing it for the first time, and I was nervous because it is a recitative. It is a spoken dialogue in music for half an hour.
What are you nervous about? What can go wrong?
Everything can go wrong.
Well, you're not going to forget the score. You've got the score in front. What can go wrong?
No.
Can you lose your sense of the...
You know what could go
coherence?
wrong? That I would just conduct one bar after another. That's terrible.
So that
in my, let's say, nervousness or anxiety that everything will be correct, it's possible that you forget the music. It's possible. The worst thing is, of course, diffidence. Nervousness is better than that.
Well, what does the soloist think about some of those same questions? Because they obviously have very strong implications, particularly for a tenor who has to go out there and hold a whole evening intact with just, as one writer said, 2 pieces of gristle in there. And another writer has written about the heroic madness of the tenor going after impossible notes. I have the feeling from having watched Luciano Pavarotti rehearse the last few days that he has an extraordinary sense, a precise sense of what his resources are, and that the likelihood of his doing something like that Parme's experience with La Boheme, breaking on a high note, is very, very low. He seems to know exactly where he is at any given moment in rehearsal, in resting, in planning, in training. But nonetheless, the risk hangs there in the air and must always confront any performer who has to carry so much on his own back at any one given time. In any case, just about the time that Zubin Mehta and I were finishing that conversation out in Central Park, the airplane bringing Luciano Pavarotti over from Italy was starting, as they say, its descent into the New York area, and I went over and had an hour's conversation with them about these wonderful questions of collaboration and risk. Here's part of it. Luciano, when you're working with a conductor who's a superb artist like Zubin, is there a subordination of one musical will to the other? Does somebody have to be the boss and make the key decisions?
There is certain conductor and certain singer, then they are so different. Then one of the two must be the boss, and generally he's the conductor. But with a musician like Zubin, I have the feeling then I am totally free, and I'm sure he has the feeling to conduct me. Because I think we understand each other very well.
Is it possible for you to make good music working with colleagues whom you in fact don't like very well, but who may be very brilliant?
Well, I'm telling you, if they are very brilliant, I love them, if they are my colleague.
But suppose they're really rotten and they're cruel and they're thoughtless but they just happen to be great musicians.
Just happened once, and we still on the stage did work very well.
So the music can become the discipline.
Nothing to do with the person. then if you want, you don't work anymore with that person. But the moment you are there and you think that the person is really a very good colleague, I mean a good singer, not a good colleague in terms of, and you appreciate that person like live singer, you forget every other thing.
Debussy said that the crowd for a virtuoso performance is a bit like the crowd at a circus. There's always the hope that something dangerous is going to happen.
Oh, that is for sure. Well, in that terms, let's say that the voice of the tenor alone is already something dangerous, because it's a little artificial, and then there is so various difficulty that make the tenor voice more seducing than certain other voices.
Yeah.
In my opinion, of course. But I think that is the main reason. And when I am singing, if you tell me that, I don't lie, because, like I told you, I just prepare myself very normally, and I don't pretend to break the word. I don't pretend really to impress anybody. I just pretend to do good, to do the best that I can. But it don't scare me. I don't need.
There's a tremendous amount to remember.
Yes.
Do you ever suddenly fear you're going to forget?
Well, don't tell me that, please.
Oh, God, I'm sorry. Strike that question.
No. It's very good. It's a very good question, but don't tell me in terms of don't scare me more than I need.
Sure, I didn't need to. But do you have a sense of going into a kind of athletic thing where there's that joy of the body, the joy of almost a physical contest?
There is a physical contest. I was a sportsman when I was young, before beginning this beautiful profession like student. If you really want to know, I think then be the very bottom of every singer, especially when they grow too much. There is an athlete there. You have to do the life of an athlete. You have to do a very, very stay in exercise like a student.
In training.
And in training, let's say a singer of 60, 65, 70, I saw people singing on the stage until that age. They still feel young, and they are judged like they are young. In fact, if they don't sing well, they say he's old, even not thinking what age it is. The voice is coming old, even if somebody is 40 or 50.
One of the great English poets, Andrew Marvell, who is trying to persuade in this poem his young lover to be cooperative, says, "At my back I always hear time's winged chariot hurrying near." I'm wondering if you have a sense of time coming up behind you pretty fast.
Oh, yes.
Is that bad?
Are you joking?
No, I'm not joking. I'm
For example, I have the feeling that I must die. That is the most horrible feeling. Then going close to the 50, I'm 47. You really begin to think, God, we are going to die. I mean, die not for a car accident. Really die because you become old. And you see your father and your mother, then they are not dying, but they are 70, 72. My grandmother, my grandfather, they're dead, And you realize at this age, then you are really going that. You would like very much then the time stop in this precise moment. You will probably do like Faust. You will sell the soul to him
for another chance.
Yes, well, that is impossible, of course, but yes, I have this feeling, and that is the general feeling of the life. Then is, of course, slowly by little going to the end, and I realize then before that. The voice is going to end because you don't sing until the last day of your life, unless you are very lucky, like very few singers and they die singing. I think they were very lucky. I mean, if they die at 60, 70, something like that, it's too soon, but it's better like that, probably. think it's definitely better to die, like I say, young, because until you are singing, you are young. I mean,
People respond to that sense of the approach of Time's Winged Chariot in two different ways. Some by saying, okay, I'll slow down, I'll just measure things out with a little more space, and others say, I've got to pack in everything while there's still any time left.
Yeah, well,
what are you like in that regard?
I cannot run quicker than I have done, because since 22 years ago, when I sang for the first time on the stage, I really don't know what is the word holiday.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't seem very long, does it? 22 years?
No, it doesn't seem very long, but seems very long, believe.
Yeah.
I have a lot of picture,
Yeah.
and I can't see myself. Slowing down is difficult. It's difficult because, of course, you are in demand, and like I told you, it's the profession that we want to do with all our power, but not now, even 10 years ago, even 20 years ago.
I was always baffled, for example, when Horowitz disappeared for 6 or 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yes.
You wouldn't do that.
You cannot do it.
You can't do it as a singer.
No, you cannot do it at my age anyway, because if you disappear for 6 or 7 years at the age of 47, you cannot come back at the age of 55 to 56 in good form. Well, it would be a miracle.
Do you have to sing every day?
I will not try to do that.
No, but do you have to sing every day?
Practically.
What happens if you don't? I mean,
well,
you get out of...
No, nothing special. I mean, if I have 3 days between the performance, the day after the performance, I always close.
Rest, total
rest, yeah. Mm-hmm. But then then 2 days after I begin again, the day of the performance again, and well, like I told you, I feel I am a student. I'm not at school because the teacher is not in the other room, but I have that animal with all these white teeth. You see, the piano is really barking at me, sometimes biting.
This is live from Lincoln Center, coming to you from Avery Fisher Hall in New York City. And once again, let's go backstage to Patrick Watson.
Well, it is 10 seconds before 9:15 p.m. on Monday evening, April the 4th, 1983. The program is coming to you live and very live from Avery Fisher Hall at the Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts. I was talking earlier about the springtime sense of that audience out there, and I think that the word that is even more important than springtime is eagerness, but the two of them go together. There was some anticipation around town that a few people might be waiting with their claws out for Pavarotti this time, coming back from Europe with kind of a little bit of bad noise left over from Milan and the cancellation in London. But from the moment that man walked on the stage tonight, you could just see those wonderful grins of welcome and eagerness rippling through the whole audience. That's remained constant through the first half. It would be redundant for me to tell you about the applause that's been thundering in every time he walks on the stage and every time he finishes a piece. The speculation going on back here, and the call for the musicians back on stage went about 3 minutes ago, so we'll be back in business shortly. The speculation backstage here is that the concert has not yet peaked, that there is a kind of build to everybody's energy that comes on a very special evening like that, that's going to express itself sometime in, well, the next hour, I guess, is what we've got, or hour and 10 minutes. Mr. Maida has come back down from his dressing room. He will be doing the Oberon Overture next. Mr. Pavarotti will be coming down shortly. He'll go back out to the hall now and prepare for the second half of this extraordinary gala evening with Luciano Pavarotti, the New York Philharmonic, conducted by Zubin Mehta.
And that applause is for concertmaster Glenn Dicterow. You see him standing in the lower left-hand portion of your television tubes. Mr. Dicterow, concertmaster of the New York Philharmonic since 1980. To begin the second part of this gala concert, Zubin Mehta will conduct the New York Philharmonic in the overture to the opera, which generally is considered to be the first in the great tradition of romantic German operas, the opera Oberon by Carl Maria von Weber. And there is a very, very prominent horn solo in the overture to Oberon. I'm sure it will be greeted with great applause after the overture has been performed. Zubin Mehta to begin the second part of this concert, conducting the New York Philharmonic in the overture to Oberon by Weber. Philip Myers, the solo horn player of the New York Philharmonic, was just on your screen, and it was he who opened the Overture to Oberon by Carl Maria von Weber with that meltingly beautiful horn solo. And there were some close-up shots of various of the principal players of the New York Philharmonic. Solo flutist Julius Baker, solo oboist Joseph Robinson, solo cellist Lorne Monroe, and others, all of whom figured on your screens in close-up shots during that performance of the Overture to Oberon by Carl Maria von Weber. And now it's time for the return of Luciano Pavarotti. Here he is to sing the aria Appuyez doucement from Massenet's Manon. Mr. Pavarotti will sing it not in the original French, but in Italian, Dispar Vision from Massenet's Manon.
Io son sol, sol al fin, il gran momento è questo. De nulla più che avrami fuori che il riposo sacro che dona la fe. Sì, io misi Dio stesso tra i ben del mondo e me. Sangue ormai la della vita e di bugiarda gloria. Io non può che scacciar la perfida memoria di lei che ognore ancora senza tregua m'insegue. Gran Dio, con la tua fiamma purifica quest'alma e sperder possa il tuo chiarore l'ombra che passa ancora nel profondo delle cose. Visione
aria Appuyé Doucement from Massenet's Mano, sung in Italian translation. Dispar Vision. Luciano Pavarotti, our tenor, with Zubin Mehta conducting the New York Philharmonic in this live from Lincoln Center telecast, coming to you from Avery Fisher Hall in New York City. And continuing in the French operatic tradition, when Zubin Mehta returns, it will be to conduct the New York Philharmonic in the prelude to Georges Bizet's Carmen. And afterwards, Luciano Pavarotti will return to sing the flower song from Carmen. Here is Zubin Mehta to conduct the prelude to Bizet's Carmen. And from the prelude to Bizet's Carmen, we next go to what is probably the best-known tenor aria from the opera. Zubin Mehta motions for Luciano Pavarotti to return to the stage for the flower song from Carmen.
faut-il que le destin valise hélas sur mon chemin? Oui, j'ai m'accusé des blasphèmes et je les ôtais à moi-même. Les ôtais comme son désir et son désir et son espoir à
La fleur que tu m'avais jetée, the flower song from the second act of Bizet's Carmen, sung by Luciano Pavarotti, with the New York Philharmonic under the direction of Zubin Mehta. And in just a moment, we'll continue in the French operatic tradition with the Soldiers' Chorus from Gounod's Faust. Here again, Luciano Pavarotti returning to the front of the stage. That all-embracing stretching out of his arms, seemingly capturing the entire audience here at Avery Fisher Hall within his grasp. The Soldiers' Chorus from Gounod's Faust, a second Soldiers' Chorus on this program. This time, the soldiers return home from victory, and as they revel in glory, they sing of their eagerness to greet their mothers, their wives, and their children. And of course, the performance will involve the men's chorus from the New York Choral Artists, whose director is Joseph Flummerfeld. Carmen and Faust are probably the two best known and perhaps best loved of the operas in the French repertory. Here is Zubin Mehta for the Soldiers' Chorus from Gounod's Faust. And from the Soldier's Chorus from Gounod's Faust, we next turn to the tomb scene, the final scene from Donizetti's Lucia di Lammermoor. Again, we'll have tenor Luciano Pavarotti and bass James Morris. And in this scene, Edgardo, believing that he has lost Lucia to another man, wants only to die. Suddenly, a group of mourners tells him that Lucia is close to death and has been calling his name. Edgardo tries to see her. He learns from Raimondo that it is too late. She is already dead. Swearing he will join her in heaven, Edgardo pulls out his dagger and stabs himself. The final scene from Donizetti's Lucia di Lammermoor, the tomb scene.
Faci tuttavia splende il castello, ma scarsa fu la notte al tripudio ingrata donna, mentre io mi struggo in disperato pianto, tu ridi esulti accanto al felice consorte. Delle gioie in seno, tu delle gioie in seno, io della morte, io dell'amore. tu pur dimentica quel barbo dispregiato, mai non passar mio Barbara del tuo consorte al lato. Rispetta le belle ceneri di chi moria per te, rispetta le belle ceneri o di chi moria per te. Dai non passarmi, tu lo dimentica, rispetta almeno chi muore per te. Mai non passarmi, tu lo dimentica, rispetta almeno chi muore. Chi muore per te. Rispetta almen le ceneri, di chi moria, di chi moria per te. Rispondete per pietà, Lucia diceste, su parlate, a Lucia rivolgi a me placata, ecco ascenda le tue fede. O serira dei mortali, fece a noi sì cruda guerra, se divisi fungo in terra e congiunga il nube in cielo. Bell'alba innamorata, ne congiunga le nube in cielo. Oh, bell'alba innamorata, ne congiunga le nube in cielo. Io ti seguo, forse nato, che vai, oh, ricordo, ritorna in te, no, no, no. Accesti.
Tenor Luciano Pavarotti as Edgardo. Bass James Morris as Raimondo. In the final scene, the conclusion, the tomb scene from Donizetti's Lucia di Lammermoor. Zubin Mehta conducting the New York Philharmonic and the men's chorus of the New York Choral Artists. This has been the final work on the printed program of this gala concert here at Avery Fisher Hall in New York City. But obviously, we'll have an encore or two. Luciano Pavarotti. His trademark, that large handkerchief in his left hand. Now it's in his left, no, still in his left hand. Mr. Pavarotti applauding the players of the New York Philharmonic. And they, in turn, applaud him. Pavarotti sang the first solo vocal recital at the new Metropolitan Opera House. New since 1966, but never host to a solo vocal recital until Maestro Pavarotti's performance there in 1978 in one of the best remembered concerts during the course of this Live from Lincoln Center telecast series. Luciano Pavarotti and James Morris now accepting the applause of the audience at Avery Fisher Hall. It's a very special atmosphere, whether in the concert hall or in the opera house, whenever Luciano Pavarotti sings. The amazing hold on the affections of the audiences that Luciano Pavarotti has succeeded in capturing is one of the miracles of present-day music making. And again, they return. Our two principals, Luciano Pavarotti and James Morris, and also Zubin Mehta. And I think from the various close-ups that our camera crew has caught this evening, you probably have a very clear insight into the physical character of the performance. Mr. Pavarotti, Mr. Mehta, both of them perspiring profusely during the course of the concert. An amazing outpouring of energy. And with his arm outstretched as he goes to the backstage area, I would imagine that when Mr. Pavarotti returns to the stage, it will be bringing Zubin Mehta back with him. Oh, listen to that rhythmic foot stomping. And yes, Mr. Mehta goes to the podium, and we'll have an encore.
From the last act of Tosca, e Lucia alle Stelle.
Vedolezzava la terra, stridea l'uscio dell'orto, e un passo sfiorava l'arena, entrava nella fragrante carezze
E lucevan le stelle from the third act of Puccini's Tosca. Sung as an encore by Luciano Pavarotti with the New York Philharmonic under the direction of Zubin Mehta. Coming to you live from the stage of Avery Fisher Hall at New York City's Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts. And some 2,700 people here at Avery Fisher Hall in New York City, many of them standing on their feet, applauding and cheering. Luciano Pavarotti shaking hands with Concertmaster Glenn Dictorow, and now turning to the audience. That wonderful, outgoing personality of his. As he goes to the backstage area, more people get up. Some from the back of the hall have come to the front part of Avery Fisher Hall in order to be closer to Luciano Pavarotti. A fan seeking an autograph. Wrong time, I'm afraid. And the male chorus from the New York choral artists lined up in 3 rows to the rear of the stage here at Avery Fisher Hall, applauding along with everyone here at Avery Fisher Hall. Luciano Pavarotti, Zubin Mehta. Mr. Mehta asks the players of the orchestra to rise as the two of them, hands clasped, acknowledge what is a very enthusiastic reception from the audience. And I don't think we've heard the last of the singing of Luciano Pavarotti this evening yet. Certainly this audience wants more. And with the graciousness of the artistry of Luciano Pavarotti, he accedes to the wishes of the audience. We'll have another encore.
L'aurora di bianco vestiva, la luce di schiuda la canzone, e già con le rose sue dita, carezza dei fiori lo stuore, commossa da un fremito regalo, intorno il creato già fare, e tu non ti desti e di lavoro, sto finalmente a cantare. Metti anche tu la veste bianca e schiudi l'uscio al tuo canatore. Non ne sei, la luce manca, dove tu sei.
one of the best-known songs from the Italian repertoire, Mattinata by Ruggero Leoncavallo, composer of I Pagliacci, sung by Luciano Pavarotti, with Zubin Mehta conducting the New York Philharmonic. One of the remarkable things about the audience here this evening is that very few of them have left to go home. After 10 p.m. in New York, many concertgoers who live in the suburbs must leave their places in order to catch trains. Well, trains to Connecticut and Westchester are not functioning and have not for about a month because of the rail strike, but I'm sure there are many in the audience who have to get to Long Island. And those trains are running, but very few concertgoers have left. And turning to the musicians of the New York Philharmonic, Luciano Pavarotti acknowledges their performances in this evening's gala concert. In his descriptions earlier in the program, Patrick Watson said something about charisma. I think that word was invented for Luciano Pavarotti. And again, rhythmic foot stamping. And rhythmic applause. Wonderful close-up, rhythmic applauding hands. Shall we do it again? Yes, indeed. from the audience following that performance of probably the best known of all the Neapolitan songs, O Sole Mio. Luciano Pavarotti and Zubin Mehta with the New York Philharmonic. And there was that wonderful byplay between Pavarotti and Mehta halfway through O Sole Mio when both of them were caressing the music. O Sole Mio, our third encore of the evening, sung by Luciano Pavarotti. And now, with Mr. Pavarotti and Mr. Mehta, Joseph Flummerfeld, the director of the New York Choral Artists, and to the left on your screens, bass James Morris, who was an associate artist this evening. James Morris, Joseph Flummerfeld, Luciano Pavarotti, and now Zubin Mehta in the front line with them. Mr. Mehta shaking hands with his concertmaster Glenn Dicterow and associate concertmaster Charles Rex. Big smile on the face of Luciano Pavarotti. And perhaps you can see that those faces in the audience that are visible on your screens, I think every one of those persons has a smile on his and her face. Smiles on the faces of the musicians of the New York Philharmonic. Luciano Pavarotti, James Morris, Zubin Mehta, and the New York Philharmonic. Luciano Pavarotti's unique personality and individual qualities have reached and touched countless audiences throughout the world, on stage and in concert. His name is a household word, and each season he regularly adds a new role to his repertory and new songs to his recitals. The great lyric roles, he has all sung them, and the dramatic style has come with his growing maturity and expanding artistry. Tosca, Luisa Miller, Rigoletto, Trovatore, Un ballo in maschera, La Bohème, L'Elisir d'Amore, Lucia di Lammermoor, La Gioconda, La Favorita, Aida, and Mozart's Idomeneo comprise the bulk of Pavarotti's repertoire in the opera houses of the world. He has recorded many works that he has not yet offered on stage, such as Rossini's William Tell, Boito's Mefistofele, Bellini's Sonnambula, and Giordano's Andrea Chenier. That recital of his, to which I referred earlier at the Metropolitan Opera House, the first vocal recital given in the new house, took place on February 12th, 1978, and was a live from Lincoln Center telecast. A January 22nd, 1979 joint concert with Dame Joan Sutherland was another live from Lincoln Center telecast, and on March 23rd, 1981, Dame Joan and Pavarotti were joined by Marilyn Horne in a televised triple vocal recital with the New York City Opera Orchestra under the direction of Richard Bonning. Beyond the voice and artistry of the man is his enormous personality. He has made a unique personal statement at each and every appearance. His first recital in the United States took place just a little over 10 years ago, on February 1st, 1973, in Liberty, Missouri. Luciano Pavarotti, one of the extraordinary artists before the worldwide public today. He was born in Modena, Italy, where he resides with his wife and 3 daughters. Luciano Pavarotti became a teacher and entered the Scuola della Magistrale on leaving preparatory school to start his training. It was there that he met his future wife, and they qualified together for teaching. After 2 years of teaching, he decided to become a professional singer, to the great joy of his father, who had always hoped that the son would become an operatic tenor. This is Martin Buxban. Good evening.